Good day to you all snow lovers. This is Ethan with the Sawtooth Avalanche Center with today's weekend update for March 3rd, 2023. As a reminder, this does not replace the daily avalanche forecast, so check that every morning at 7 a.m. at sawtoothavalanche.com. Let's jump in. We'll start with a quick review of the weather. This is from the Lower Titus Weather Station. You can see the temperature trend over the last 7 days on the top and precipitation recorded on the bottom. We had one warm day to start. Actually, it was last Saturday during the weekend, but since then it's been actually very, very cool with highs mainly in the range of about 15 degrees, bumping up above 20 occasionally. You can see on the bottom portion of the screen there, these blue blips are precipitation events. We had one beginning Sunday afternoon into Monday. We had a bigger one Monday night into Tuesday. And we had snow kind of trickle in Tuesday night, Wednesday, as well as Thursday. I'll highlight that one temperature bump again on last Saturday. That was a very sunny, beautiful powder day, but it also caused a crust to be formed on a whole lot of aspects that face the sun, as well as some that don't face the sun, simply because it was so warm. That crust, where it exists, sits underneath the recent storm snow that we picked up since Sunday during this last week, which is pretty substantial. It also serves as a marker and a weak layer that we can identify as we move forward on with the season. When we look at the wind trend, this is the Upper Titus Weather Station along Galena Summit, Titus Ridge. We can see we had periods of moderate wind a little bit over the weekend, a little bit earlier this week. Mainly from the southwest and west during the snowfall. The wind then shifted Wednesday midday and has been blowing fairly light, although it's been strong down in the Soldiers from the northwest through the end of the week. Snow totals over the last week have been quite remarkable, actually. So we had a big set of storms come through that initially favored the north and western zones, but Tuesday night filled in the southern zones as well. So if we look up at Banner Summit, we have 20 to 24 inches. The Sawtooths and Western Smokies picked up anywhere from 20 to 36 inches. The Wood River Valley and Soldier Mountains picked up 20 to 30 inches. Most of that coming in one overnight storm from Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, which you can see the Baldy snow stake there. That was cleared at 4 p.m. on Tuesday and filled in quite nicely with 13 inches by morning of Wednesday, March 1st. The one zone that picked up the least amount of snow is the Galena Summit and Eastern Mountains, with the exception of some of the Smokies that extend down here toward Dollarhide Summit. A good portion of the White Clouds didn't pick up very much. The Boulders didn't pick up a ton of snow. And it's a little unclear how much snow fell so far in the Pioneer since we don't have weather stations up there. But they also picked up likely less than we did here in the Wood River Valley out of that storm. As you can imagine, with a lot of snow, we saw a bump in danger. We bumped from moderate to considerable at upper elevations. And we've got two avalanche problems that we're dealing with this week and on through the weekend and likely into early next week. We have a wind slab problem. You're going to find this problem primarily at wind-loaded upper elevations that received more wind. The exception to this would be mouths of main drainages, which can see more wind than normal as the wind gets funneled through these main drainages and outflow winds that come down the Wood River Valley. So good examples of that is that you might find some wind slabs at lower elevations or middle elevations of the mouths of, say, Indian Creek, on Della Mountain near the mouth of Croy, or some sort of similar main drainage like that along the Wood River Valley. The second problem that we're dealing with is growing concern is persistent slab avalanches. We added a persistent slab problem first to the Sawtooths because they had the most snow earlier this week, and then to Banner Summit. Since then, when we had that big storm come through the southern mountains, we've added it now in all zones. And this is going to differentiate itself from the wind slab problem because you're going to find it in areas that are not obviously wind loaded. So it's pretty simple a lot of times to be going, climbing an elevation, oftentimes in the trees, unless you're down here in the Wood River Valley. As you poke your heads out the tops of the trees, or the trees start to thin, as you climb up, you'll notice a lot more wind effect. You might see some scouring, some rocks sticking out, some obvious cornices and drifts. And those are clues that you're moving into more wind affected terrain, and wind slabs should start to be top of mind. Below that area where you have that wind effect, we have well-developed weak layers. The one that was formed underneath our recent storm snow is one of those that formed on Sunday, or was buried on Sunday rather. And these slab avalanches are going to be releasing in areas that are more protected from the wind, and releasing on buried weak layers. This is an avalanche from Banner Summit that we took a picture of on Monday, the 27th. So the very beginning of this week. You can see a skier coming down from the top of Copper Mountain, and very likely remotely triggered this avalanche, meaning that it collapsed on some weak layer of snow underneath their skis, and that collapse propagated out to the edge of this steep piece of terrain and released an avalanche. You can see that it is obviously wind loaded right here at the top, but when we move down further, we see that there were releases in very inobvious sheltered terrain where you would expect these to not see very much wind. And that's where this persistent slab avalanche problem is going to be lurking. Here's a skier triggered avalanche on Della. This was Wednesday morning, and this skier had skied a line and was traversing underneath this slope and remotely triggered it from the bottom, had a collapse that propagated up the hill and released in this wind-loaded pocket. Again, these wind-loaded pockets are going to do something very important, which is they're going to stiffen that slab up a little bit and allow it to be a little bit stronger and hold itself together, which is going to cause wider avalanches. It likely failed, however, on a weak layer of snow beneath the storm snow. So the combination of those weak layers along with the wind load is what's really going to cause the most dangerous avalanche conditions. We also had some natural avalanches come down on Warm Springs Road on Wednesday morning, one of which struck a vehicle and pushed it off to the side of the road. This is a picture that was taken on Thursday, the 2nd, and it's of snow removal crews out there trying to get those things cleaned up. Here's a natural avalanche up Mindbender, which is the East Fork of the Big Wood River, just off of the Wood River Valley. Again, starting in wind-loaded terrain, which is going to help stiffen that low-density snow into a slab, but likely releasing on a weak layer of snow, buried about 1.5 feet deep in this location. Here's another remote triggered avalanche. This was out Greenhorn. Some snowshoers or cross-country skiers were walking out just before dark, heard some branches snapping, looked to their left, and noticed this avalanche coming down the hillside. So again, they're collapsing a weak layer of snow that is then propagating that fracture up to a steeper slope and releasing a slide. Here's a skier triggered avalanche out Indian Creek, which is just off of the Wood River Valley, again in a wind-loaded pocket just below a ridge, and releasing likely on some weak snow below. So as we look ahead, we've got sunny skies this afternoon. We've got another storm coming in Saturday into Sunday, and snow flurries lasting into early in the week. This is from this is the forecast for Bald Mountain. Notice that the temperatures are actually still remaining just in the teens, so we're well below normal for this time of year. This is how much snow we're expected to get through Monday morning. You can see that over in the Soldiers, we're talking about almost over 1 foot. Similarly, here in the Western Smokies and Southern Sawtooths, a little bit less as you get on the other side into the shadowed side of the range, but another 5 inches for Sun Valley, maybe 6 to 8 inches coming here into the Pios and up into the boulders. So another substantial storm. Some tips and takeaways for the weekend. Wind-loaded slopes are still the most dangerous, but you might encounter avalanche hazard in areas that are typically mostly sheltered, from the wind. So anticipate being able to remotely trigger these things. There's a couple weak layers to pick from, and they're showing signs that they're quite sensitive, especially where they're wind loaded. You can manage this problem by simply kind of sticking to lower angled terrain and anticipating that you might be able to trigger something from a distance. So not walking too close underneath steeper terrain. You can also look and listen for cracking and collapsing of the snowpack, like these cracks here pictured on the right. This is an obvious sign that you have all the ingredients for an avalanche minus a steep enough slope. And finally, the birds are singing out there. I noticed we've got cedar waxwings and red-winged blackbirds and everything coming back into Haley here. But we are far from a spring snowpack. So even though we're starting to creep into the middle of March, and a lot of you guys are itching to get out there and start picking bigger lines as the sun's up higher in the sky for longer, it may feel like spring, but trust me, the mountain snowpack is very, very, very much still in midwinter mode, and we have a long way to go before we start to transition to a spring snowpack. With that in mind, please share what you see out there. It helps improve our forecast, and we appreciate it very much. And with that, I'd like to say thank you, and be sure to check the daily avalanche forecast every morning at 7 a.m. and we'll see you in the hills.